أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers, sisters, and those of you who are going to be watching this online. Let me first start by saying Jazakallahu khairan to Brother Abu Bakr and the IQ Center for inviting me today. Even though the event poster said it's a 5 pillars event, it's actually an IQ Center and Brother Abu Bakr that's pretty much done everything. So may Allah bless him and reward him, the team here. And just to reiterate, when you have such an asset like the IQ Center in your locality, you should support it in whatever shape and form that you can, especially financially. Ultimately, it's an investment for us all in this life and the next. So please, when the opportunity arises today, from now until end of Ramadan, please do support and donate. Just to say a few words before I introduce our esteemed guests, most of whom you would know them because they're locals, and I see a lot of locals here. Even though the title of the event is called Gangs of Birmingham, the issue of gangs, criminality, drugs, substance abuse, vice addiction, all of these issues, they transcend communities. They affect Muslims, they affect non-Muslims. It's an issue in the East, it's an issue in the West. But certain societies and communities suffer more than others. Other communities have certain protective measures. In the case of the Muslims, we have our faith. But even then, it affects our communities, not just in Birmingham, but wherever there is a high population of Muslims in urban cities, the issues of street gangs to organized crime, it affects us all in our communities. So inshallah ta'ala, in this today's conversation, in this episode of the Blood Brothers podcast, which will be released in a couple of days, we're going to explore what our two guests have experienced growing up in Birmingham and see how there is actually a theme which relates to Muslim communities up and down the UK and beyond. And number two, what lessons did they learn from their respective experiences? And we will conclude inshallah ta'ala with some words of advice, some reflections to move forward as a community. And without any further delay, I want to introduce our two esteemed and beloved brothers. To my immediate left is our brother Moazzam Begg, Outreach Director of CAGE, the advocacy group, but internationally renowned for his struggle as a detainee in Guantanamo Bay and his endless work thereafter. May Allah bless him and preserve him. Assalamu alaikum Moazzam. And to my far left, not that that's any insinuation to our ideology,
Well, far right.
Well, he has so many accolades, I don't know where to start. He's a community activist, he's a youth development advocate, and most of you will know him from his time with the Lynx gang and later as a fighter in many fronts. And that's none other than our brother Shahid Butt. Shahid Butt, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How you doing, my brothers?
Alhamdulillah.
Can I see a show of hands to see who's actually from Birmingham? The vast majority. Keep your hands up if you know Moazzam and Shahid. MashaAllah. Strong.
Put your hand up, you know.
Strong. Generational.
There's many people who deny.
Plausible deniability.
Guilt by association. Look, today's conversation, my dear brothers, I've come here upon your invitation. I'm truly honored. And I know today's conversation can digress into so many different ways. But inshallah, we want to keep it on topic. And that is ultimately your experiences, your reflections, and then of course, some kind of guidance moving forward for the shabab here, and for parents, and for faith leaders, inshallah. But I want to know a couple of things because the brothers here who may know you both, I want to know, you both are Birmingham born and raised.
I was born and raised in Birmingham and lived here all my life and grew up mostly, I think, totally in the Sparkhill area. And of course that's relevant to us because our story is in and around the Sparkhill area.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. No, I was born in Pakistan, but I came here when I was very young, and the rest is as Moazzam said.
When did you both first meet? What is your earliest memory of together?
You know, it's hard for me to remember the earliest memory, but just this evening, there's a brother, he came and he looked at me, and it was a look of recognition, but I didn't recognize him. Okay. And he recognized me. He said, "Don't you know who I am?" I said, "No, I can't place your face." He said, "I had the shop on the corner of Fulham Road." And I remembered immediately. All right, TC. He's here somewhere, hiding. And I said, I remember because there was an occasion, and Shahid will tell you this, but there was an occasion that shop, I don't know if he had it at the time or before, that there was some neo-Nazis walking past, and they tried to attack some women. And Shahid and some of the guys chased them up all the way to Baker Street. And me and some of the kind of younger guys, because obviously I'm younger than Shahid and I'm a lot smaller than Shahid. And I don't know about that. But what I could do is take some potatoes and some yams from that shop and start throwing it at those guys. Shahid chased them, and perhaps Shahid can tell what he did to those guys afterwards.
I can't, because I could probably still get done for it. But actually, that particular story, what they did was when they came off the bus, they actually exposed themselves to some of the sisters. They pulled their shorts down and they exposed themselves. So when we did what we did, that particular part of exposure was quite damaged afterwards. I think you can work the rest out yourselves.
Listen, I have a feeling that this evening is just going to be full of stories. So let's start a bit chronologically. How was school like in Birmingham?
So I went to a local school called Moazzam School, which at that time the majority of the students were white. So a lot of my friends were white, and a lot of my enemies were white. And there was one particular occasion, I think there's some of the brothers here, they came to this thing that happened where some guys from the fifth form, I think that would have been year 10 or year 11, were coming after me because I was wearing my Lynx jacket. And the Lynx jacket was an ex-Italian army combat jacket with a patch that we put on. We bought it from Mike's Army and Navy store, which is the Sikh Gurdwara that's on the corner of Court Road and Stratford Road. They were already made. These are ex-Italian army.
Right, so it came with the patch?
No, the patch, we got the patch separate. And so these guys were coming to get me. I had told some of my friends from the Lynx, can you come outside the school? I need help. And they came. And as I said, some of those brothers are here today. They came with, just say, different types of things to help to defend. And the guys from the school started ripping the fences out and pulling the sticks out. So it was a face-off between all of those guys and a handful of us Lynx guys. And that was one of the first encounters I had. Nothing happened at that point, but it was one of the first encounters as a schoolboy I had with racists, with people who didn't like Pakis. That's the term they used, Paki bashing. And you'd hear often that they're going up and down the road, Stratford Road in particular, you couldn't imagine now, but up and down Stratford Road, looking for Pakis, Asians, to beat them up. Shahid's experiences, I think, were even more profound.
Shahid, tell us, actually, let me just ask the audience, can I see a show of hands to see who has heard or know of the Lynx gang? Oof, that's some strong numbers there as well, mashallah. How did it form, when did it form, and who was it made up of?
So I can't really pinpoint it down, but we all used to hang around together. Most of the guys who actually were part of the Lynx. I think what sort of started it off was we watched a film called The Warriors, and when we watched that film, The Warriors, that gave us the idea, one, about having the jackets. We didn't cut the arms off because it's too cold in the UK. And that's where we got the idea about having a uniform. And we kind of saw ourselves like the Warriors, because the Warriors were being chased down by all the gangs. Yeah. And we were the same in the sense of that we were a small group of guys, and we had all these racists and all these looking to take us out all the time. And that's where also the idea, I can't remember exactly how the name Lynx came about, but the reason why the Lynx name was chosen, because I don't know if you know, but the Lynx is like a wild cat, which is part of the lion family. And one of its fighting strategies and techniques is that because it's small, it does what we call like guerrilla tactics. So it's like hit and run, hit and run. And again, that summed us up about how we were. We were a band of young lads. We were up against a bigger enemy, and the whole, so we used to do this kind of hit and run kind of tactics. We couldn't take them on in a full way. But you asked about school. I'm just going to paint a little picture here. And for those of you who are parents, and for those of you who are youngsters, picture this. Just for a moment now, put this into your mind. You're a 12, 13-year-old kid with your school uniform on, your tie halfway down, your shirt hanging out, your blazer on. And it's like just after school just finishes, as you're all coming out of the school, in front of you, I'm talking about my school was Highgate School, Mount Pleasant, where Joseph Chamberlain is now. Before that used to be the school. And on the other side, as you're coming out of the class, of the school, there's a coach. There's a coach in front of you, and in that coach is grown men. And they come out of there, they're skinheads, they've got baseball bats, crash helmets on, and some of them even had dustbin lids. They probably thought they were Romans. Now, they came out, now just picture this.
Explain why dustbin lids back in those days, they were metal.
Yeah, because it was metal, so, just to sort of, hit you with. But I'm saying today, can you imagine outside your child's secondary school today in Birmingham, a coach load of skinheads, grown men, pulls up outside and comes out with baseball bats and is giving it the FU Pakis, blah, 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 and all that sort of stuff here. Now, that was school life. You youngsters here, you think you got it tough because you didn't get your PS4 or your PS5 or you ain't got the latest iPhone here or whatever issues that you're having to deal with. Deal with that. How would you deal with that? We were kids. There's no police. There's no mobile phones. If you phone the police, they're like an Indian film. They come after 4 hours. So that ain't going to happen. So just to imagine that when people ask me, what was it like growing up in Birmingham? What was it like going to school? That was my reality. My reality was, I'll come back to that. My reality was that when I was 11 years old, walking to school on Moseley Road, opposite the swim baths, I got jumped by a couple of skinheads and these Nazi guys here. I'm 11 years old. Who's 11 years old here? Put your hand up. Have you got any 11-year-olds here?
Any 11-year-olds here?
And I'm sure you've got some kids. 11 years old.
Some youngers here.
Can you picture that, especially you youngsters? And you're getting the shit kicked out of you because you're a Pakistani. That was my welcome to the world that you're about to set foot in. That set the standard. And so I know I'm going on a bit, but I've got loads of stories. But this incident, and then it kicked off. So we 12, 13, 14-year-old kids in our school uniforms are fighting against grown men. I'm not trying to, speak badly of our youth here. We love you, and you are close to our hearts, and you are our next generation. Yeah. But are you going to fight grown men at 12, 13 years old? It was different dynamics then. But that was the reality when you asked about school. That's the kind of school that I used to go to. And to get to school, I used to have to run a gauntlet. Because if I went down that road, that old woman would come out, yeah, you're effing Paki, go back to your country, you smelly Paki. And you go down another road and someone sets the dog on you. You go down, what the hell is this? This was how I used to go to school every day.
Moazzam, what's your first recollection of participating in an engagement with some of these colourful characters? By the way, what era are we talking about here?
So we're talking about, for Shahid, I think it's the late 70s. For me, it's the early 80s. Just one little point in terms of the Lynx. there were older brothers, there were older guys, the original the original Lynx, these brothers. They were the original Lynx, and because, when you're younger, just 1 year or 2 years makes a massive difference. Nobody wants to be, you don't want to be associated with a 14-year-old if you're 16. And so the older guys had already set up the Lynx, and the reason why the Lynx came about, and I only found that out recently, is because they were told by some of their elders from the parts of Kashmir where they come from, is that there's a lynx cat that operates in this region. And it won't mess with anybody, but it won't let anybody mess with it.
There's an origin to it.
There's an origin to it, yeah. And like Shahid said, it does that hit and run tactic.
Ethnic makeup. What was the ethnic makeup?
So the ethnic makeup is interesting. Shahid's got a picture of it, and there's pictures in my book.
We'll put it up on the screen.
Yeah.
So you can see it on
and
the video.
in this, you'd think that everybody's a Pakistani, but everybody isn't. Majority are from Kashmir, different parts of Kashmir, right? But there are other guys. There's people who are Yemeni, white, Irish, and then there were people associated with us. People who wouldn't be with us all the time, but sometimes they'd be there for hanging out, sometimes in a fight. And when a fight happened, particularly in particular areas where we used to frequent, then whoever was around would join in, knowing that they have the backing and the strength of the Lynx gang. And one such occasion was, everybody know Warwick Road? Does everybody know Farrow's? Farrow's, where they got that, the bull. So that used to be the Mermaid pub. And there's a particular fight that took place there, which I think was very indicative of the actions of a lynx animal.
Do tell.
So we had a friend, his name is, well, I won't give him his name, but he had a shop. He had a shop, and a bunch of mods. Now, it's difficult to describe what mods are, but just say they're driving on motorbikes, and they all come to his shop, and they trash his shop, and they tell him, he as a gang member tells them, come back.
Moazzam, let me just ask you something, just so, because the youth here will know EDL, Britain First, and these type of groups. When you say mods, are we talking Combat 18, Teddy Boys, mods? Is that era?
So yeah, this is the era. They're coming on from the 70s onwards, okay. And there's a particular genre of music, but they dress in a particular way, they behave in a particular way.
Mods.
And rockers.
And rockers, of course.
What about Teddy Boys?
Yeah, so that was earlier.
That was a bit earlier.
That was 60s or 70s.
Yeah. But a similar thing.
It's a similar thing. The common factor is that they're all white.
Okay.
Here.
And they deal like Asians.
Exactly. And so here, what happens in this particular incident, that he says, come back tomorrow at this place. And so the word spreads. The word spreads that there's going to be a big fight tomorrow, here at this place, at behind the pub.
Mermaid pub. Yeah.
Mermaid pub. And so they turn up the next day in vans. Now imagine this, van loads of guys, again with sticks and bats and helmets, coming ready to pulverize us. They've come for a gang fight. And so me and the two guys who were with me in this particular movement, both are dead. Both passed away. One is one of the most beloved. He was one of the most beloved people to us. It's hard to describe how much everybody loved him, but everybody loved him. And the other was he passed away later.
Allah have mercy on them.
Ameen. Allah have mercy on them.
Ameen.
We were sent, whilst everybody's waiting, hiding in the car park, which is still there to this day. They're waiting in this car park, Shahid amongst them, for us to get them to chase us. So we go round the corner onto Wetherock Road, they see us, we start swearing at them, etc., etc., they chase us. And these guys are all now waiting to pounce on them. And boy, did they pounce on them. I think Shahid can tell you part of the story, but there was every kind of person there. It wasn't just the Lynx. It was every kind of person in the locality. There was one guy Shahid just reminded me of. He didn't really want to fight, but he bought a little pellet gun. And it's the kind of pellet gun that you'd have to push into the ground to put a little pellet in. And he'd go around, while we're fighting them, shooting them in the backside. But there's a particular incident that took place after this. So imagine, right, we're beating them all up, we're fighting, and it's a proper like a film-like gang fight taking place. We chased them then onto Weather Oak Road, bricks and bottles and hockey sticks, and then, again, I'm looking right at the person who this happened to. One of these, everybody's on the floor. They're all beaten up. They're all lying on the floor or in their van, stuck, can't get out because they've been bricked or bottled or beaten. And there's just a couple of people left. Shahid and their leader.
Come on.
And he has this big log. And he throws it at Shahid. He misses. Shahid dodges. But the guy I'm looking at...
Make yourself known, come on.
Gets hit with it.
Oh dear.
Sorry, Bones.
Friendly.
Top shit.
And then Shahid does what he has to do. And all of these mods are obliterated on our streets by our hands. And that was one of many incidents. We can tell several others, but that's one that was one of the most memorable for me.
Rumor has it that Shahid Butt has a deadly roundhouse kick and axe handles. Have you ever witnessed any of them?
I don't want to be doing all the talking, but considering it's about Shahid and he's here, there's another occasion that happened. We were a bit older now. I think we're about, 16, 17? We come back from somewhere, I don't know, hanging around. And again, the Mermaid Pub, right across from Birmingham Islam, which is a masjid, which we would never go into. And this is really important. I find this part really important, because we'd always find people, wouldn't we, who'd try to advise us and say, come to the masjid and so forth, isn't it? But here, something happened. I can't remember the exact detail why this happened, but Shahid ended up in a confrontation with one of these skinheads in this pub. Shahid beats him up, punches him, and then he goes in and he says something which tells you what kind of guy he is. He says, don't call one of your mates out, call them all out.
Come on, Shahid.
I kid you not. I kid you not. And Shahid we used to do martial arts together. We studied what was the first
Taekwondo,
one?
yeah.
No, before that.
Wing Chun.
Wing Chun,
Yeah.
We used to do Wing Chun together, then Taekwondo. Shahid won some belts, and he used to love his machine gun kicks, But try that in real fights. So they come out. They do come out. A whole load of them. There's about 4 or 5 of us. And Shahid starts doing the kicks, one after the other. But this is no Taekwondo competition. And they surround him and start to beat the hell out of him. And we, tough Lynx guys, look and we leg it. That's the instant. You see all these guys coming out from the pub and you leg it. Then I made a decision when I turned around and I saw Shahid that he's getting covered by these guys. So I stopped and I turned around and I ran back and I dived. Shahid said it was a flying kick. I thought it was a flying head, but who knows?
Yeah, she said it was like an Amitabh Bachchan kick. It was. That was
exactly. Let me. So basically, after that's happened, some of them got dealt with. But obviously, when there's like 20 guys, there's no matter what you're going to get smothered. So while I'm rolled up like this, they're giving me a beating. From the corner of my eye, I see this object coming in the air. Yeah, like a Superman. And I'm getting pounded. And I looked up and I saw him flying through the air, doing a Amitabh Bachchan special, jumping on top of them. When he landed on top of them, they all left me and started beating him up. So we both got back to, it was 50-50. They got good ones, but what can one guy do against 20 guys? I can only kick so many of them, and then eventually they're just going to smother you, aren't they?
No, Shahid,
let me just finish that very quickly, because this something happened then. When they got on to me, I was right now on the corner of Fulham Road, right in front of the masjid. And I was getting the life kicked out of me, kicked into my face, into my teeth. My blood was pouring into my mouth. I was totally covered in blood. I had a white jumper on and it was red. And I didn't know what to do. Honestly, I thought I'm going to die. And I couldn't even pronounce it properly. That's how little my connection with Islam was, so little. But I screamed out as loud as I could, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. And you know what happened? They stopped. It stopped. And you know what happened? Why they stopped? Because a police car came around the corner. Not only did it come around the corner, they say me as the Asian guy, and those are the white guys. Who do they arrest? Me. They arrest me and put me in the car. And as I'm in the car, I see them all around, so I start sticking my fingers up. Not this, obviously not this finger. And they start to come around and hitting his vehicle, hitting his car, and he drives me down to the bottom of the road, and he says, "Get out." I go home, my dad sees me in this state, and he takes me to that accident hospital. I go into the accident hospital, I see about 4 or 5 of them. One with a broken nose, there's one of our guys, you know him very well, he told me that he hid behind in one of the alleyways. One of them came through, he pulled out this stump from a fence which had a nail in it, and he whacked it in his head. So this guy was in the hospital too. They're all there and they tried to attack me. I get arrested and was spent 2 nights in the police cell. So this was kind of we've all been arrested for fighting. We've all had issues with the law. When we were violated, we'd be the ones getting arrested.
Shahid, these stories are clearly grounded on a noble thing, which is fighting racism. It doesn't sound like you guys were necessarily the ones that were provoking it. It was just the reality at that era. Did any Lynx members eventually get involved in crime or criminal activities later on?
Yeah, so it's important to understand that, like you've just said, we didn't do what we did because we were gangsters. I don't even like that term. We were not gangsters. We did what we did because our community was under attack. These streets that you walk around today, Ladypur Road, Stafford Road, Allen Rock Road, Moseley Road, these streets that you walk around today with your pants hanging halfway down your backside, yeah, and you think you run the show now, but 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it was these racist gangs that ran the show. And what they would do is they would go around and attack our mums. They would rob them, they would spit on them, they would, when the mums would take the kids into the park, they would come and attack the kids in the park. That was our daily routine. So as a consequence of that, we reacted. So we didn't start it because I want to be a top G, we want to be a dealer or a gangster. None of that nonsense. We were just ordinary young lads who just wanted to live in a safe environment, and we wanted to protect our families and our mothers and our daughters and our wives and our sisters. So that's the main reason why we did what we did. And we then used to patrol around the area, and that's how this all began. And it's very important that, especially you youngsters, because me and Moazzam are not here today to glorify this. This is, sometimes it's a bit cringeworthy talking about these things, because it's like we're trying to show off that we were some bad dudes or whatever. We're nobody. But the thing is, the difference between today and then is that what we did for a reason. It was to defend our community. And I'm sure we'll as we talk about it, we'll talk about today and how things are. But to me, nothing's changed. The same far right and skinheads and racists at that time who used to tag the walls with APL, Anti-Paki League, who used to have tattoos on their fingers, APL, yeah, or Paki, bashing or whatever. That's how proud they were of who they were. They weren't afraid, and they would come out in your face. And all that's happened is that they lasered off the tattoos, they grew their hair back, they put on suits, and now they're in positions of power. So nothing's changed. Because don't forget, if I'm still alive, they're still alive as well. So if I was anti them and they hated us then, they still hate us today. But now they're in power and they're controlling the system. What was the second part of the question, sorry?
No, I was going to ask you that, what you just described there can be kind of applied to so many urban cities where there's Muslim firms or Muslim majority firms. Literally what you described there is the case in Luton, many parts of East London, parts of West Yorkshire, the north. It always starts with that first generation or the children of the first generation who primarily fought racists. But then as the areas become safer and there's normal white racists floating about, our women, our elderly and the vulnerable can walk around safely. And to right, you explained it. The kind of safety and the bravado-ness that we walk in these streets now, it was made safe from the showdowns of 20, 30 years ago. But I've noticed a trend, and shed light on this, is that some of that first generation, after the races had been fought off, some of them got involved in drugs. They got involved in creating their own firms, because there's a kind of law of the jungle, which is to hold down the streets, you have to essentially hold down the drugs. There's always a vacuum. Once the Gore have gone, now you find yourself in, for example, growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, and even up until now, most gangs, you're fighting Muslim versus Muslims. It's brothers versus brothers. This wasn't the case in your era, and it wasn't the case right up until the late 80s, I would even say. And then things started changing. So did any Lynx members or people who floated about the gang then eventually transition into those things?
So what happened was that, as obviously, the Lynx was there and we were doing what we were doing. But then as things started to calm down a bit, because you got to remember, we not only fought them on Safford Road and Ladypool Road and Moseley Road and Allenbrock Road, but eventually when they realized that they can't come into our areas and they can't attack our mums and they can't spit on us, but we didn't stop there. We took the fight to them. So we used to go into Acox Green, and these were their headquarters in those days where they were the strongest. And then we took the fight to them. And we used to apply our guerrilla tactics. We'd go down, we'd find out what pub they hang around in, and would send two of the fastest guys, the quick runners. I wasn't one of them because I can't run. And they would go, blah, 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 F and this and that, yeah. They'd all come out of the pub, chasing them two, and they'd bring them right to us, and then we'd be on either side of the street, and they'd get dealt with. So we didn't only deal with them in the area, we took the fight to them. So they realized now, that's it. Then what happened was, as things started to calm down a bit, other gangs started popping up. Yeah. So a lot of these gangs, like the Panthers, they came way after us. Then you had the Redheads, and you had the Dragons, and it was similar kind of time. But then what happened then was what we call, like post-Cold Wars. Aston Panthers fighting the Lynx in Sparkhill, fighting the Afghans in Small Heath. Then all this nonsense started. And then typically being how, unfortunately how we are, once we deal with the collective threat, we start fighting each other. I have to say that this is something that I was always against. I always avoided this. I tried to always be the United Nations in this, trying to make peace between the different groups. There's so many things that happened,
Did you ever have a punch up with other Muslims?
We did, yeah. I remember once when the Panthers came down to Rainbow Caf on Brother Akram's. Yeah.
And these are Apne, these are Muslims.
Apne, yeah. And they came down, and it's a long story. It kicked off, and then but some of the elders were there as well, like and them, like some people will know who they are. And they were and we were there as well, and it kicked off a big fight, blah blah blah. And then what happened was that one of the Panthers was on the ground, and I won't say who it was yet. And one of our guys pulled out a knife. Now we never used to fight with knives. That's something that we did. We was always fists. Yeah, worse jello hockey or a baseball bat or something like that. But it was always fist fighting. That's another thing as well. In those days, if you were a fighter, it wasn't because you could pull a trigger with your little pinky finger, yeah? It's because you could use these. So there's actually less fights that used to go on, because if you're gonna offer somebody out, or if you're gonna act like a bad man, you better know how to use these, because if you don't, you just better move on.
What about going to people's homes? Was that a thing?
So that was the difference between then and now. Everybody's a plastic gangster. Why? Because he's got 20 mans, yeah, and one of them's got a shooter, and that's it. So themselves individually they can't fight, but when there's 20 of them, they'll jump you. It was different in those times. So when that one particular brother from the Panther was about to be stabbed, I was the one that grabbed the brother's hand from one of our lot. I pulled his hand back. I said, no, that's going too far. I told him, get up. They actually left their cars there and they went back to Aston. And then they called me on the phone in the cafe and said, Shahid, we need to come and pick our cars up. I goes, come down, don't worry, no one's going to say anything. But this is when it all started, all this nonsense, and we started. Now those guys, the Panther, they're all my best mates. We see each other, and we're all good friends. But it was that kind of stupidity that was going on, that we were started fighting each other. And some of the brothers did get into criminality. In fact, the guys, probably some of the guys here will remember, I actually remember, I won't say his name because some people might know who he is. I remember the first guy that brought heroin and started dealing it in Sparkhill. Yeah? And we collectively were like, nah, bro, you can't be doing that. No, that's going too far. We don't do that sort of stuff. Yeah? And unfortunately, that brother did it, and then he became an addict, and he was almost died from it. And now, alhamdulillah, he's recovered, and he's like, helping people to come off it. So drugs, that I remember the first time, before that was just weed.
So are we talking now mid-80s, late 80s, early 90s?
Mid-80s.
Mid-80s.
Mid-80s, yeah.
When was your official departure? Tell us, both of you, tell us, when was your official departure from the Lynx?
So one important part of criminality by definition comes with gangs, but as Shahid said correctly, we didn't, the biggest kind of gang we thought we associated was the Warriors, and that's from the film.
So it wasn't about money, cars, women, jewelry?
Not at all. I mean, those aspects were connected. There were always connections. There's always somebody involved in drugs somewhere, right? But that's not what the gang was about at all. The point at which we started to, there was a time when we were fighting alongside the other gangs against the racists, and that's in the Birmingham city centre, in town, every Saturday. Hanging around town, either by the library or in the bull ring, always hanging around patrolling. And because you're meeting at this central place, the Aston Panthers, even some of the Trojans, sometimes the black gangs, we'd get together and we'd fight on occasion if we know that there's a march of the skinheads, for example.
So which black gangs are we talking about?
So there was one called the Trojans, for example.
Trojans,
right?
okay.
So we'd meet up every now and then, not always, every now and then. And there was one particular occasion I remember. There was a bunch of us. And we didn't know one another. When you know one another, you can vouch for one another. Had no idea who these guys were. A ton of skinheads. And they're marching up in Birmingham city centre towards where the old library used to be. And some of them have got baseball bats, some of them have got these helmets and whatever, and they're whacking them saying, Paki's out, Paki's out, Paki's out. And that's the closest that I can imagine in my life. And I've been in war zones. I've been in physical war zones many times, as Shahid has. But anything that I could think of that would relate to the wars of old, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when the man to man, face to face,
yeah.
That was it. That was the occasion. If there was anything, there were police horses in between us, and the horses left, and it was just us. So that's just to describe one type of encounter, and there were many types of encounters like this taking place when we were fighting together. As time went on, once we'd got rid of these people, inevitably we started to fight each other. There were occasions when we fought with the Panthers against the Sher-e-Punjab.
Sher-e-Punjab Sikhs, yeah?
The Sikh gangs,
Yeah.
who were a newer emerging gang. But unfortunately, yes, there was a lot of this stuff. And that really, for me, and I'm sure and for Shahid, became a point at which, that's not for us anymore.
So when was your official departure? Like moving away from the Lynx, moving away from the gang scene?
We always remained friends with certain people. Was one of them. Who was what? It's those who knew he was the beating heart of the Lynx of our generation. But everybody starts to get older, moving along. For me, Islam played a central role. That role was to do with some of the things that my father had told me about, the relatives had told me about. And so when died, this central character, when he died, it was the biggest shock to me. And that became one of the key factors for me to practice Islam and to start to ask questions about where is our brother now? Because the way in which he died was not the way that you'd expect a Muslim to die. And we pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives him. And when I saw his body, I could not recognize him. I think I'd be right to say that he was the best looking amongst us. He was the best looking amongst us. He was half German, half Pakistani. And it had a massive shock on me as a person. And I started to ask real important questions about the soul's journey after death. Shahid had his own journey, I think was slightly separate to me. But we met again at a very, very crucial point.
Shahid, when was your epiphany or turning point, or was it more gradual?
I think you probably gathered, because this is the toned down version of myself. Yeah, this is me trying to be all classy and smart ass and whatever. Yeah, but this is not how I used to be. I I had screws loose in my head. And the reason why I was on a different kind of psychological, psycho level was because from the age of 11, all I've heard is you effing Paki, you dirty effing Paki, go back to where you come from. So I grew up with a lot of anger and rage. I hated white people. I hated everybody. And the only way I could express myself was with my fists. And I realized that the more I hit, the more successful I became in that kind of thinking. That, yeah, people started respecting me, people started getting to know me. So I thought, yeah, you know, I don't need to talk to people, I just need to smash. That's it, that works. So, but what that did was that had a very big psychological effect on me. And obviously now, you know, all these years later, after having, looked into all of these things, I had a lot of trauma, a lot of psychological issues. Because for me, I wasn't able to express my feelings by speaking. The only way I could express myself was with my fists. And so obviously now I've had time to reflect and think about it, and I've spoken to people, psychologists and this and that, and they've told me that this was what was going on. So I was a very, very angry individual who was confused. In the daytime, when I go to school, I'm English. When I come home, I'm Pakistani. And when I go to the masjid, I'm a Muslim. I had all these conflicting things going on in my head. I was trying to conform. I had that lack of belonging. At the same time, I wanted to be a masculine man. And at the same time, I wanted to have money. At the same time, I wanted to have a nice car. I wanted to wear nice clothes. But I got kicked out of school when I was 15 years old. So I never had any formal education. I've never sat an exam in my life. I haven't been to college or university. Everything that I've learned from the streets. And nowadays from YouTube and ChatGPT. But but the thing is that I can't, so I'm just trying to set the picture here because of how the exit happened. Yeah. So this is who Shahid Butt is. He's a very angry, frustrated, confused, partly psychopathic, yeah, who just used to fight people for no reason. What are you looking at? Bang. For no reason. That's how stupid I was. People used to think I had some screws loose, maybe because of all the steel toe cap boots in my head here from the skinheads. Maybe that did put a couple of screws loose, but I had no control over myself. It's important that you understand this. I used to have something called, is it called blind rage? I used to get that. I used to get a red mist in front of my eyes. And sometimes I'd be fighting somebody, and then eventually when I come to, I've got all these guys holding me, and they go, Shahid, what are you doing? What are you doing? And they go, bro, you knocked the guy out with the first punch, you're punching the goddamn wall. Because I used to have the red mist in front of my eyes, which is quite dangerous, because if I used to snap, what if it was my wife or a family member? It was dangerous. So that's the kind of person I became as a young man. What took me out of that was, I asked myself that question, which I'm sure a lot of you here may have asked as well at some point in your life. What's the purpose of my life? Is this it? Going around like a dog chasing its tail? Is there no purpose to my life? And when I started asking those kind of deep soul kind of questions, then I thought, okay, I started to look into my culture, Pakistani culture. I started wearing shalwar kameez and becoming a Pakistani boy and all that. But that didn't really resonate with me. And I'll give you a little story. There was a local masjid, because this was the turning point for that particular era.
Did it resonate at all?
With Pakistani culture?
Yeah,
no. It didn't attract me at all. Because I saw too many flaws in it. I just saw Hinduism and all that sort. And I'm like, because we used to watch Indian films, and I'm like, well, what's the difference? We're not Hindus, we're Muslims, even though I never prayed. But I still thought, but this is not what we are, all this culture stuff that we're doing. Obviously, I didn't know what I was saying, but that's what was going through my head. There was a local masjid that had been purchased by the local community on just off Umbersley Road. And they needed some volunteers to clean up. So I volunteered, I went down. It's a long story, but they had all these industrial pipes. And I said, look, get some welding torch, and I'll cut these pipes off the walls so that, we can clear the place up. So I'm there up this ladder, with the gas torch here, and I'm cutting these pipes. So when you cut them, they get red hot, don't they? So I'm cutting them. There's no health and safety. I was just randomly cutting these pipes. And one of the pipes slid down from the roof. It slid down. Now, for those of you who know, with the gas torch, there's a blue and a red. Yeah, blue is oxygen and red is acetylene. Yeah. Now, acetylene If it's ignited on its own, it'll cause an explosion. But when it's combined, it makes a flame. So when it came down, it slid down. These two pipes are joined together like this. It cut the blue pipe, but it didn't cut the red pipe. I've come down off the ladder, turned the gas bottle off. I'm scratching my head thinking, yo, what just happened here? Technically, I was a millimeter away from dying. That's when I had that epiphany that, you know what? My time wasn't up. Because I was doing a good deed, I was in the masjid, cleaning up all the bird shit and all of that sort of stuff and making it decent for the house of Allah. And I never prayed, by the way, by this time. I wasn't praying. I was just Muslim by name. I didn't know anything about Islam. But I knew that I was a Muslim. I had that seed in my heart. And when that happened, that's when my whole life changed around. I go, you know what? This is my path. Islam is where I need to go. And then that's where that journey started.
Moazzam, when did you next reconvene? Actually, no, before I go to that, no, we are going to get to that. You've spoken about, Shahid, you said that you had racist skinheads back then, but now they've grown their hair, they lasered their tattoos, they've got suits now and they're in power. Reform UK are ahead in the polls. If there was an election tomorrow, many pollsters believe that they could potentially even get a majority. We've had the reemergence of the grooming gang stories. We've had the Southport riots, the riots that we had last summer. So do you see similarities and differences to what you see now, Shahid? Because now, most Muslims are involved in gangs and criminality, whether it's the organized, high-level stuff or the street stuff. It can be argued, it's very worldly. It's about the watches, the clothes, the cars, the mall, the women. There's a very clear materialist drive to it. Now, if you speak to a sociologist, they'll say to you, they'll say, look, there's so many socioeconomic factors as to why people join gangs. Poverty, absent fathers, dysfunctional families, and so forth. The list is quite endless. But what I've observed, at least in the late 90s, early noughties, is that most Muslims that get involved in gangs don't actually come from bad families. They have a mum and dad. They might not be the most Islamic families, but they're stable enough to have siblings, mum and dad. There's a community network. They're not even necessarily poor. They're quite stable. Do you see certain differences and similarities to that era when you were on road to now?
Yeah, that's a very good question and very pertinent to that situation today. Look, from my perspective, and Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed me that for some reason, I'm always ahead of the curve. In those days, and some of the guys are sitting here today, know that I used to say then, this is not about Asians, this is about Muslims. And I said that in the 90s, that this is not about Asians, this is about Muslims. They're going to come for us. And
what made you say that? What made you feel? Because we're talking pre-9/11, right?
Pre-everything, bro.
Pre-Bosnia, pre-Afghanistan?
Pre-Bosnia, pre-Afghanistan, everything. This is the late 80s, early 90s. Some of the guys used to think I was a bit, conspiracy theory, here we go, Shahid Butt at it again now, this and that. But everything that I said has come true. I remember when I came out of prison from Yemen, which is another story, we can talk about it. And I remember the first thing I did after, because I was 5 years in prison, first thing I did was I went to Baker Street to have a doner kebab, and was there, and he goes, the first thing he said to me, he goes, Shahid, you were right. That all the things that you used to talk about then is exactly what's happening now. Yeah, about how this whole thing against Islam and the Muslims and all of these things. Yeah. So, from my perspective and my eyesight, the way I see it, nothing's really changed. The only difference is like I said, that those guys, look, it's very simple. If I'm here with these strong views and with this passion that I have, do you think they're not here? Of course they are. They never left. They've just got multi-million-pound businesses. They've set up political parties. They've got international funding. They have their military wings. They have their training grounds. A lot of them have been going over to Ireland with the Unionists and fighting and learning over there. You know, they've been going into Eastern Europe to learn weaponry and all this sort of stuff. They are prepared and armed and everything. They've got full support. And while they've been doing that, what have we been doing as a community? We're stabbing each other. We're shooting each other. We're selling mal to each other. We're driving up and down Ladypur Road in our souped-up micros with a big exhaust on the back, yeah, and giving the pam 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 up and down, yeah, and acting like gangsters. And I have to say, if you do that, shame on you, because one day you're going to hit somebody's mother, you're going to hit somebody's sister, and God forbid, if you hit my mother or my sister, if you hit one of my family, I'm coming for you. I'm going to hunt you down. Don't do it. Stop it. Behave yourselves. Why are you putting the lives of our families just for your little 30 seconds of revving up your car and driving up and down like you're a bad man? If you're a bad man, get out your car and do something for real. That's not being bad. So it's there now. They're here now, today, right now. They're in your face. Elon Musk did a Sieg Heil in front of the whole world, which is saying, middle finger to you all. We are here and we are coming and we're going to annihilate you. Call it what you want. It was a Roman salute. It was a Sieg Heil. You know what a Sieg Heil is? It's what the Nazis do. Yeah? He did it on international, worldwide. Hundreds of millions of people saw that. It was a signal. We are in power now. You're emboldened. Rise up. Rise up. And let's get rid of all of these people, these groomers and these Asians and these immigrants and all these. Let's get rid of them.
So that's what last summer's riots were about. Yeah, so the Southport tragedy happened. There was a huge disinformation campaign that took place on X, enabled by Musk. His mask has fully slipped by now, obviously, and there was loads of misinformation. There was, the killer was supposed to be an illegal immigrant who was a Muslim. Tommy Robinson, Reform UK, Andrew Tate. Everyone was involved in spreading this misinformation and fanning the flames against Muslims and migrants. Were you surprised when that happened?
No. There's nothing new. You know, one thing, and this comes from Islam. If you read the Quran, I don't mean just like this, up and down. If you read the Quran in the translation and you read the hadith and you sit with the ulama and you listen to Islamic knowledge, none of this should be a surprise. Why are we surprised? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly in the Quran tells us about who our enemies are and not to take them as your friends and protectors. So why are we surprised? Why is because we as Muslims have let our guard down. We started getting comfortable. Andalusia, Muslim Spain, the Muslims ruled for 800 years. The greatest technology, the greatest scientists, the greatest, to give to the world came from Muslim Spain and Andalusia. 800 years. 800 years. What happened? They started wearing silk. They started wearing silk slippers. A bit of dancing over there, and a bit of dancing over here, and a bit of money over there, and a bit of easy life over here. And as soon as they got the hubb dunya, the love of the life, what happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took it all away. We are in the same situation today. We are too comfortable. And the reason why we're comfortable is because all of you and me, we live in our own little world. We don't go out of Sparkhill. We don't go out of Alum Rock. We think the world revolves around these couple of areas. My brothers and sisters, step outside a mile out of where you live and you'll see what you're in. Have a look at on a football day of the Blues, yeah, when they come into Small Heath, and tell me who's significant. We're like a little speck when they come in their tens and tens of thousands. That's the reality of what this is. They allow you to live in your little ghettos, to run your little cars up and down the road and have all of this nonsense going on because that's what they want you to do. We have dumbed ourselves down. We need to raise our level. Parents need to raise the level of their children. The kids need to wake up. They need to stop disobeying their parents. They need to respect their elders. They need to respect women. They respect their mothers. Today, you youngsters, go home and hug your dad and hug your mother, kiss her feet. And I'll tell you another thing as well. Back before the people used to ask me, how do you become brave? How do you become courageous? Shall I tell you how to become brave and courageous? There's a couple of things. First thing is, you can't be wrong and right. Sorry, you can't be wrong and strong. What does that mean? If you are going down, your boy calls you up, yo, what you saying, bro? Yeah, come down, I got a beef. Yeah, you all land. What's the beef? My man's checking my girlfriend out. Yeah, and you know what I mean? He or something stupid like that. Or I was selling him some mal, yeah, and he paid me less. You're gonna kick off, and if you get stabbed and if you die, what did you die for? How can you be strong when you're wrong? But if somebody phones you up, yo, bro, I got an issue, you go down, oh, this guy, yeah, he's insulting my mother, yeah, you know what I mean? And I can't deal with him on my own, can you help me? So yeah, you go down and say, yo, what's your problem? Yeah, and something happens and you die. Isn't that a better death? Because you went for the right reason. You probably be Shahid. So you can't be strong when you're wrong. And the other thing is that if you want power and if you want strength, live your life on the haqq. Every day of your life, don't be doing no oppression to people. Don't be doing dodgy stuff because you don't know when your death is going to come. So always live every day, every second, do good, be good, say good, because you don't know when your death is going to come. So when it does come, at least you know you were doing something good. You have to understand that today, yeah, strength comes, and it's especially for the youngsters, my brothers and the sisters, but especially the boys, yeah. You have to kiss your mother's feet. If you want to be stronger than Khabib, yeah, go and respect your mother. I guarantee you, everybody, every young man here, I don't care how much BJJ you do, I don't care how much MMA you do, yeah, it don't mean nothing. If you don't have the respect and the love of your mother and your father, you are a failure. All your life you will be a failure. Kiss her feet. When you kiss your mother's feet, watch how the power and the strength comes. I guarantee you that's how it's going to come, because you can't be wrong and strong.
Moazzam, let me ask you something. There's a very famous adage. Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men. You know, when you reflect upon that situation, what are your thoughts in terms of how it was for you back then in terms of these kind of gang activities? It was mainly around anti-racism, but now it is very much internal, fighting each other, entirely, if not mostly, around haram activities. There is no nobility in the essence of why youngsters get involved in gangs, or even on a higher organized crime level. It is entirely predatory, capitalistic, worldly. Can you defend an area? Can you defend a Muslim area? Because look, we had the riots last August, last July. And in those cities and towns which had a significant concentrated Muslim population, because we forget, we're actually 4 million amongst 62. And that's nothing. Now, the far right will say, no, but it's the birth rate, it's the conversion, it's the illegal immigrants. Okay, that's all good and well. A lot of that's dog whistle. But the truth of the matter is we are a significantly small number, yeah? In terms of proportion, Muslims are 4 million. So there's two things I want to ask you. Number one, anyone who will watch this, like for example, if a non-Muslim white person watches this and they listen to what Shahid just said, they say this mindset sounds very isolationist. You talk about belonging, you talk about identity, but it still seems that you're isolating yourself into a herd mentality. Number two, can you defend your communities without being involved in crime?
So one of the things that saved me, saved Shahid, and brought us back together in a different direction was, in a sense, a wake-up call to that life is fleeting for both of us, right? He could have got killed and I saw our friend die. You know, you said earlier on that many people come from a decent background, and that doesn't stop them getting involved. It depends what it is. I came from a good background. The trauma that I had was my mother died when I was 6. And may Allah have mercy on her. But my upbringing was good. What caused me to get involved into fighting to defend myself and the community was my experience. Getting called Paki, go home in the school. I'm in a minority. You either fight or you become humiliated. And my father, may Allah have mercy on him, he taught me, though he was a banker, I mean, he was a well-to-do guy, he taught me to fight. There's not one occasion, not even the time when I went back home covered in blood, when he said, son, what you're doing is wrong. When I went to Bosnia with the mujahideen, when I went to Afghanistan, when I went to Syria, he never said to me, son, what you're doing is wrong. Never. And that's extremely important, because whilst we're talking about the kids of today and what they're doing and how they're behaving, which Shahid has said is completely correct. And the amount of times I've seen them ripping up and down my road, in fact, on my road a couple of years ago, they killed one of these, I don't know what to call them. They killed a child that's 2 years old crossing at a zebra crossing. One of these young lads in a Range Rover. And so myself and Shahid, we have grown children. Grown. They have children. So now we're in a position of grandfathers almost. And the question has to be asked as to, let alone the children, what are the parents teaching them? What have we've learned something and we're imparting it to you and hoping that some way, somehow people will be able to take some lessons and implement them. We've got a tidal wave of ignorance and jahiliyyah and crime and criminality. So can we solve our problems without getting into them? The reason why I got into world in a gang was to fight to defend. If I hadn't been, if we'd been in a different country, in a different place, I think most likely I would have joined the military. I think most likely, in fact I wanted to, and he did too. We're just that way inclined. That's not really much of a choice for our people over here. And so you have to, the Prophet, and what's really important for us, if you think about the best unique Quranic generation, the Prophet ﷺ said, خَيْرُ الْقُرُنْ قَرْنِي ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَ ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُم. Right? The best of generations is my generation, and then that which followed, that which followed. What were they? Think about the Sahaba, because ultimately, if we're going to think of examples to follow, and I said this yesterday, we may know the names of all the singers and the dancers and the, excuse my language, the porn stars
or drill artists
and so forth. Do you know about, let alone the men, the women who came to the defense of the Prophet ﷺ in the midst of the battle, whose arms were cut, who said in the midst of the battle while they're defending Rasulullah ﷺ with a sword, Ya Rasulullah, all I ask for you is that I have an opportunity to enter Jannah. Why is that important? The Sahaba, as much as they knew how to defend themselves, they all knew horsemanship, swordsmanship, how to use a bow and arrow and so forth. They knew how to speak and deliver the message. The Prophet ﷺ is a Nabi al-Ummi, the unlettered prophet. He can't officially read and write, right? When the angel Jibreel says to him, "Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq," he responds by saying, "Ma ana biqari," I don't read. So his words were so profound and powerful that they penetrated the hearts of people. And one of the things that I encourage our people, our youth, yes, anybody watching this thinking, oh, we're isolationist, we're separate, and so forth. No, we're not. We're delivering the message to you. That's what we're about. That's what makes Islam so unique. We are in the heart of this beast. And we are trying to save ourselves and you in the midst of that. And what we're trying to do here is to reform ourselves. The ultimate story of what's happening here today is saying that something brought us out of that gang violence, that it started off for a good cause, and it eventually went into directions. Some of the pictures, you'll see the photograph, Shahid.
We'll put them on the screen.
There's at least 3 people who died there either from drugs or alcohol. Muslims. And so we knew that that's not the direction we want to go to. But in fact, there's at least there's one, who still to this day, as a result of being involved in that life of crime, I don't know, is he still in prison or not? He's still in prison, right? Yeah. So it never ended for him. So it's so important that we understand the concept of Islam and what it came in for us to protect our deen. And for me and Shahid, it manifested as we want to protect other Muslims who are facing genocide in Bosnia and so forth. And by definition, you have to learn how to pray. We started teaching martial arts in the masajid, in Green Lane, in Birmingham Central Mosque, as part of, we didn't know how to pray. We had to go to the salah while we're teaching the martial arts downstairs because you're in the masjid. I don't know how to pray, but you're now forced to. And as much as now I started to learn Arabic, I started to learn the deen, I started to learn the Quran, tajweed, recitation, so forth, because I wanted to defend Islam.
In terms of identity, before I hand it over to Shahid, do you regard yourself as British?
Yes.
And what does that mean to you?
It's where I was born, it's my connections, my community. To me, I see no problem in that at all. And the reason, again, my points of reference are Islam. If you take some of the Sahaba, Bilal al-Habashi. Al-Habasha was a place of Christians. Suhaib al-Rumi is Suhaib the Roman, and Muslims were at war with the Romans. For Salman al-Farsi, it's Persia, they had a massive battle with the Muslims. So there's nothing wrong with you being known as whatever it is where you come from. That's geography has made you that way.
Were you always at Al-Britanni when you were traveling abroad?
He's asking, was I always Al-Britanni?
Yeah. No, something, you're Kunya and
Al-Britanni. The thing is, when you go to the other part of the world, they don't understand that you're from British, so you just say, I'm Pakistani.
Okay. Shahid, we've covered identity here, we've skirted over it. But a lot of this can be linked back to concepts around masculinity, right? What it means to be a man, the essence of being a man. A qawwam, a rajul, someone, the essence of what it means to be someone who protects, who defends, who advances. In recent years, as a reactionary movement, we've seen the rise of the likes of the Red Pill movement. We've seen the rise of the likes of Andrew Tate and others, who not too long ago, a couple of years ago, when he first became a Muslim, he was very popular. He was someone who a lot of Muslim youth used to follow. Now, that's just one anecdotal example, but there is this now kind of a very Western-focused reactionary movement to like the normalization of feminism and woke ideology. So in response to that, you see the other extreme now. What does masculinity mean to you in terms of that transition from being involved in the Lynx gang, Bosnia, Yemen, Afghanistan, and in terms of what you see now being flexed as masculinity?
To answer that, I need to just tell you a little story. Another story. It's like Jack and Ori, isn't it? Jack and Ori stories, right?
They don't know Jack and Ori.
Yeah, but the young ones probably don't know what Jack and Ori is. The older ones do. So on this, with this term masculinity, so again, these are all in retrospective, my thinking now. At the time, I didn't know all of these things. It's only later on, as I sort of analyzed and discussed and spoke about these things, I realized, all of these different factors that were involved. I thought I was a man, not a male, a man. There's lots of males, but there's not a lot of men. I thought I was a man because of the stuff that I did. But on this thing about masculinity, when I really became a man, is a different story. Because when I started practicing in the early, I was born in a Muslim family, but I never used to pray or whatever. I started practicing in my sort of mid-20s. And when I went to Hajj with my mother in 1990 or 91. And that was the kind of turning point in my life. I thought, I'll come back and I want to be a better Muslim. One day on a Friday, after Jummah, Birmingham Central Mosque, this is in late 91, 92, there was a guy outside the masjid handing out video cassettes. Do you know what a video cassette is? Some of the young don't even know what a video cassette is, do you? VCR, you know, you put it in, and you press, okay, yeah. So that was our, you know, technology of the day. So this video cassette was labeled Massacres in Bosnia and Croatia. I didn't know about geography, I didn't know about, I wasn't, I didn't know anything. I've taken this video cassette home and I plugged it in to my VCR, Hitachi one with the piano handles, yeah. And he's laughing because he remembers that one. I put it on, it was in the evening, I put it on and I watched it. This was a video that was completely uncensored. You think now you'd have to see that on the dark web. This video was taken as like a documentary or recording of the atrocities of the genocide that was taking place in Bosnia at that time by the Christian Serbs against the Bosnian Muslims. Let's not mix our words here, yeah? Crusading Christians who openly said that this is a crusade against the Muslims. Radovan Karadzic used to come on and on Sky News and said, when will Europe realize that we are fighting a crusade against the Muslims? He said that on Sky News. I used to hear it myself all the time.
And these are white Muslims, right? Just for the youngsters here. When you talk about Bosnians, we're talking about white, Bosniak, Slavic Muslims.
Yeah. So this video cassette showed dead bodies. It showed women who had their stomachs cut open because they were pregnant. And the Serbs, the Christian Serbs, radical fundamentalist Christian Serbs, had a bet, is it a boy or a girl? There were pictures of, I know there's sisters here, so I don't want to be too graphic, where they would cut off the genitals of the males and put them on trays. They had rape camps in Bosnia. They had children rape camps in Bosnia. Because the plan was to impregnate Muslim women with their children, to psychologically disturb the next generation of Bosnians, so we don't have to fight the next generation because they're going to be so traumatized that there will never be a threat to us. These people don't do things in halves. But, we'll go off on a tangent on that. Yeah, there's so much I could tell you about that. You talked about masculinity. So I made up my mind that I'm going to go to Bosnia and I'm going to try to help these people. Within 2 weeks, it's a long story, I found out a charity organization that was going to Bosnia. I joined them. They were taking 6 coaches from Birmingham full of aid, and they were going to drive to Bosnia. And the plan was to give the aid out and then bring refugees back. A lot of the Bosnian diaspora here today from the elder generation are people that we brought back. But in the 90s, who are now settled here. So I jumped on this coach. In those days, you could actually bring people back. Can you imagine that? You know what I mean? It's not, we brought refugees back from Bosnia to here. Yeah, you can't even contemplate that now.
There was fundraising for the jihad in Bosnia at that time, right?
Yeah, openly.
Openly in the masajid.
Yeah. And so, anyway, again, another long story. These guys that I went with, they couldn't get into Bosnia because the border was closed. So they were in Croatia and Zagreb. I fell out with them because I said, look, we have to give this aid inside Bosnia. They said, we can't get in. So I said, okay, well, boo you guys, you know what I mean? And I was just like moping around Zagreb. There's a lot of other, charity organizations there. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do? So one brother said, look, that brother over there, he's from London, and he's a private charity, yeah, and he's going into Bosnia. I started talking to him. We had a coffee. He goes, yeah. I said, yeah. And he goes, yeah, I'm going in tomorrow. I said, how are you going to get in? He goes, I've got local Bosnians and Croatians who are going to smuggle us across the border. I said, I'm up for it, bro. He said, come. So I literally met this guy about a couple of hours ago. After Fajr, I jump in the van with him, and now we're driving up and down around these back ways, over the mountains, this way. And the plan was to get to central Bosnia, Travnik in central Bosnia. There's a whole lot of stuff that happened on the way, it's going to get long. We got into central Travnik, and we went to the masjid there. The masjid was a 500-year-old masjid. Some of the timber beams were like 500 years old. We prayed, we asked the imam, we said, brother, we've got aid, where do we go to give it out? He said, there's a school that's been converted into a refugee center. Go there and give it out. So we went to the school, they gave us a classroom. In that classroom, we put a table like this in front of the door, and I was given the job of handing out the food packs. So I'm handing out these food packs, all these mothers with their children lining up, they're coming, and they're taking these food packs off us. When it finished, I'm like, yo, I've done something good here, bro. Because remember, I'm the failure of the family, uneducated. I didn't become a doctor. I didn't become an accountant. I didn't become a dentist. I became a waste man as far as my, I didn't live up to the expectations of my parents. They wanted better for me, and rightly so. They're not wrong in what they were thinking. But I was the complete opposite, getting in trouble with the police and jail or whatever. So this euphoria that I felt was very short-lived. Because when I came out of the corridor, there was still a whole line of mothers and their children who hadn't received any food. Now, as I walked past them, I didn't understand their language, but they were all looking at me and saying, well, what about us? Aren't you going to give us anything? Now, you've got to understand, I'm going through a roller coaster of emotions here. You see refugee camps on the TV, but for those of you who've been out into the camps, and I know there's people here, it's a different thing altogether. When you see the suffering and the stench of death and desperation and the cries of children, it overwhelms you. I recommend that all youngsters should go there to see the reality of how lucky you are in this, where you live here today, and what Allah's blessed you with compared to what these people are going through. It will change your life. Just go with a charity organization and spend a couple of days in a refugee camp. It will change your life if you do that. So when I came out, I walked past all of these, and this is the point about masculinity. I walked past all of these mothers with their children. When I got to the end of the corridor, I was overwhelmed with emotion. Basically, I was in tears. I'm not ashamed to say that. There was tears coming out of my eyes. And the reason the tears were coming out, because I was looking at these people and thinking, I've got no money to give them. I've got no more food to give them. How can I help these people? And that's when I decided that I'm going to stay in Bosnia. And I joined the Foreign Fighters Brigade. I joined the Mujahideen. And I stayed and I fought alongside the Mujahideen and the foreign fighters in Bosnia. But the point about masculinity is that when I was in that situation, that's when I really became a man. Because to tell you the truth, I thought I was a man, but I was still a boy.
Were you ever scared in battle?
Yeah, of course. I mean,
as in the butterflies, the fear of death, or did you used to embrace that, knowing that it could be?
Can I tell you honestly? Yeah, because I've seen action in Bosnia and Afghanistan as well. I did a little bit in Kashmir, but that was just on the border skirmishes. I'm not going to say to you that I wasn't scared. I was scared, but it didn't paralyze me. You know why it didn't paralyze me? Because I wanted to be a shaheed. I wanted to die for the sake of Allah. And what I mean by masculinity is that to be a man, what does it mean? Does it mean all the stuff that I spoke about before, driving up and down Lady Parade? Is that how you show your manhood? Or do you stand for something that is worth dying for? And that was when the whole masculinity thing that came about, was that this is what it's all about. Fighting for justice, standing up for the weak and the oppressed. And if we want to bring it back to today and this modern society, you don't have to go to Syria. You don't have to go to Bosnia. You don't have to go to Afghanistan. You don't need to go and pick up a gun to please Allah. You need to speak the truth. This man here, I don't want to say it to his face here, I'm older than him, but I see him as my leader. You know why? Because what this guy has been through, you can't even imagine. What this brother has seen with his own eyes, what he's seen and the experiences that he's gone through, you can't even have a speck of that. He has my utmost respect. Even though I'm older than him, and I'm senior to him or whatever, but still, you don't understand. And I know, and only he knows, and he knows about me and I know about him, that the trauma that we've gone through, we shouldn't be sitting here today. Moazzam knows this. People died in front of Moazzam. People died in front of me. Bombs dropped, shrapnel hit, stomachs are cut open. The guy standing next to you is taken out. His intestines fall out. And you have to put them back in again. They're dead, Shahid, but I'm still standing. I didn't get a single wound, not a single scratch on my body. And I've been in the thick of it. People say to me, have you killed anybody? Well, I didn't go there to smell the roses. Masculinity, man, if you want to be a man, stand up for justice. This man goes around the country speaking about the brothers in Guantanamo, speaking about Dr. Afia Siddiqui, speaking about the mustadafin, the oppressed, the weak and the oppressed. This guy is he does more than me. That's why I respect him. He's out there. He's fighting the fight. You all got to fight the fight. I have to fight the fight. We have a fight to fight here. This is what being a man is. A man is respecting women. Not this Andrew Tutty business. Because that's what he is. He's a pile of that. Yeah? Forget this guy. You have to respect women. And I know there's this macho thing going around. I see all the time, how young people want to talk about women. It's like, shut your mouth. Don't talk like that about next man's sister, about next man's mother, or next man's wife. Who do you think you are? The problem is, in our days, those guys would have got a slap across the face by me or Muslim. Now, if you do that, you're going to get arrested. Child abuse or whatever nonsense they want to call it. But we need to discipline these kids. Respect women. Respect Islam. Respect your father. Respect your mother. Respect your wife. Being macho in front of your women is not how you become masculine. One of the Sahaba in the time of Umar ibn Khattab was going to complain to Umar. And on the way there, he heard some loud noises coming from his house. Basically, his wife was, I sent you to do this and you didn't do that, or whatever it was. Yeah? And Umar bin, you know who Umar ibn Khattab is? When the shaitan saw him, he crossed over the road. The guy turned back, the Sahaba, and Umar bin Khattab just happened to come out the house and he saw him because he lived a bit far. I go, what are you doing here? He said, I came to, complain to you about some home stuff here, but I can see you got your own hands full. Yeah? But the point is that who are these people that we're talking about, these Sahaba? They were teddy bears in their homes. They were teddy bears in their homes, but they were lions in the battlefield. These men used to chop a man in half with one swing of their blade. And when they come home, they'll get this from their wife. That's masculinity. Not you're a lion in the house and you're a teddy bear outside. Yes, boss. Yes, boss. Yeah. I'll be there at 9 o'clock. I'll be there at 8:30. You give it the big one to your wife. Your wife phones you and you with a bunch of mans. Yeah. Yo, how many times I've told you, don't call me, when I'm with the boys. Yeah, whatever. I'll slap your face. You talk to your wife like that? You disgusting person. How dare you talk to your wife like that? What's wrong with you? Are you not men? Do men talk to their wives like that? What's wrong with the people, man? People got to behave. You got to stop this nonsense. Yep. If you want to talk like that, and I don't mean anything, I'm not trying to be racist here. Well, when a 6'6" black guy or a white guy comes here, how come your puss comes out then? How come bodily gases come out of your backside then? And you don't do anything? But when it's your wife, you big up your chest and you give her the big one? Is that masculinity? Is that what you call masculinity? Nah, that's not masculinity. Be men like the Sahaba. And the true manhood comes from being a Muslim. A Muslim that puts his head on the floor 5 times a day. He's a man. Respect your women. Respect the people.
Moazzam, bringing this conversation to a close, there are 2 groups of people that I'd like to be addressed as we close this conversation. Give us some words of nasiha and advice and guidance in as limited time that we have, to faith leaders, to mashayikh, to ulama, to imams, to people of knowledge, people who oversee our organizations. What would your advice be to them in relation to youth, gangs, crimes, and our future challenges?
You know, subhanAllah, listening to Shahid, you know, the reason why I said I'm happy to just be quiet because he says what everybody's thinking. And that sometimes we require that, not just being so diplomatic in how you speak, because sometimes the raw truth is what's needed. And I want you to think of this. We are seeing a genocide taking place right now. It's just ended in Gaza. They're saying the numbers are around 46,000, but actually the real number is probably close to 200,000. The real number. And if you want to have an example of men, look at the children of Gaza. In fact, I say, if you men here want to see the example of resilience and strength in the face of atrocity of the most brutal nation that exists in that region, look at the women. Look at the women. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen them and not chosen us. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا أَحَبَّ اللَّهُ قَوْمًا فَابْتَلَاهُمْ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the people, He tests them. The Palestinians have been tested for decades. We've been seeing this since we were kids. We had an idea that things were going to change here when we saw the Gulf War. I wanted to join the military. I said, I think even Shahid did. We'd gone to the military careers office, to the Army's careers office. We wanted to join the army. For me, what put me totally off was the Gulf War.
The first one.
The first Gulf War, the invasion of Iraq by British and American forces. I had to ask myself a really important question. Could I see myself in the military, even as somebody who didn't know his deen, that's fighting and killing and occupying Muslims in their own land? And I decided no, I couldn't. So then I found a different direction. And alhamdulillah, Shahid is the one who, for most of the people in Birmingham, especially regarding Bosnia, he opened that door. And he gets the ajr for whoever followed in coming in whichever way, through aid or defense or joining the mujahideen, he gets that ajr. We're in a different world today where much of that would be criminalized. And we're operating in a world where we have to navigate the constant changing attitudes towards Muslims. And policies. And the legislation that comes out every day. Yesterday you're a good guy. Now you're a terrorist. You're an extremist and so forth. In the midst of all of that, we must develop intelligent, confident, articulate, strong, faithful, integral people from our community. Abu Bakr said at the beginning that we have our debates and discussions about Birmingham, whether it's a lost cause, and sometimes I feel like it's a total lost cause. And at other times I see gems amongst us. Unsung, unreported heroes amongst us. But we have got a battle in front of us in this community. There's no doubt. It's not like the battle of the old days of the Lynx. I wish it was as easy as that. I wish it was as easy as getting your face kicked in with steel toe-cap boots or a Guinness bottle smacked over the back of your head. I wish it was as easy as that. In fact, I even wish it was as easy as walking into a minefield where the brother in front of you steps on a mine and you see his leg blown off. And you're terrified, where do I put my foot? I wish it was as easy as that. But it's not. What we have is an ideological warfare that's being waged, not just from the forces of those who oppose us, but even from within us. Those who want to water down who we are, those who want to remove your basic concept, your rajula, your manhood. If you want to know a concept of manhood, what Shahid said was absolutely correct. We have people here who threaten our women and children from our community. Not just through physical threats and violence, through ignorance. And it is so important that we start to pick up, books are done. The world of books is finished. Who knows how to write a letter? I grew up writing letters. Even from prison, we used to write letters with our hands. Who knows how to handwrite anymore? The change is so vast and fast, it's hard to keep pace. And so we have to adapt. And the only way you can adapt is by learning, recognizing, identifying the threats, and overcoming. And so, my brothers and sisters, I urge you, make yourself strong, but do not ever confuse yourself that you think that strength is in the gym. Strength isn't in the gym. That's bodily strength. The most powerful strength you'll ever have is the strength of Iman, and that's your heart. You can have the heart of a warrior. I'm going to end with one little story so you understand. You may have heard of the companion Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. He's known as one of the great commentators of the Quran. He was called by Abu Jahl, Ya Ruwayy al-Ghanam, you little shepherd boy. That's used to call him. And his legs were like twigs. They used to make fun of his legs because they're so skinny. And he was so poor that he couldn't afford a thobe long enough to cover all of his legs. And they'd slap him up. You know, he's one of those kids that you'll be able to slap up, and he has got no big tribe behind him. But you know, this poor man who loved, poor and weak man who loved the Prophet ﷺ. At the Battle of Badr, do you know who delivered the final blow that took off the head of Abu Jahl, who's the leader of the Quraysh? You know who it was? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. It was this little shepherd boy with the twiggy legs who became a lion because he surrounded himself with strong people. And so in the end, I would say final thing is that make sure that your companionship is with people who will raise you, people who care for you, people who, like Shahid that day, you know, when you do an evil act, he loves you so much that he stops you from doing it. He literally takes your hand and he stops you doing the evil. Surround yourselves with such people, inshallah.
Shahid, we've said a lot, you particularly have said a lot to the youth, to the young men. What would your concluding and parting advice be to parents and uncles and older siblings in terms of their responsibility to the youth?
Look, as a parent myself, and a grandfather as well, it's, if I'm totally honest, like I don't specifically blame the young kids, because I've said this so many times, our time was different. We had different issues, we had different pressures, and we had to deal with them in a different way. Today, the youth have different issues. And same thing as well with the parents. It's not like what our parents had to go through. The parents today have got different issues and different scenarios that they have to deal with, and it's not easy. In our time, the parents had to deal with me going out on the road and playing football where I shouldn't be playing, or doing something stupid outside on the street, and my dad would come with like a little, kind of like a little whip here, and literally he'd be clarting me with this whip on Stony Lane, and my dad's chasing me, and I'm running around like this, and I'm getting battered by my dad. And alhamdulillah, I'm glad he did it. I'm really glad that he did it. My mom used to pin me down on the floor, yeah, put her knees on my arms, and slap me and hit me. How many times have I told you, stop wagging school and this and that? Yeah, I love those beatings. I miss them beatings, because those beatings made me into a man. Today, as parents, you can't do that. Today, as parents, you can't be going on like that, because the kids are going to phone Childline, or your neighbors are going to report you, or your cousins are going to report you. So you've got to deal with it in a different way. And there's a lot of advice that we can give, but one thing that we need to understand is that don't be that parent that tells his kids, namaz par, Quran par, go to the masjid, put the thobe on, and they sit in there all day themselves watching Bollywood movies and chatting shit on the phone and lying and cheating and swearing, yo, yeah, I effed him up and blah, blah. Your children are listening to this, and they're going to copy you. Don't be a hypocrite. If you want your child to be a good Muslim, you have to be the example. When my kids were growing up, I didn't have to tell my kids to pray. They saw me pray. They saw their mother pray. Since they opened their eyes, all they saw was their mom and dad praying. They would crawl up onto my back and do all that sort of stuff. So you don't need to tell them, because that's all they know. But don't be a hypocrite. Don't tell your children to do something that you don't do yourself. And if you're doing the same thing, then just like you want them to stop, you stop first. Set an example. The teachers are not the ones that teach your kids. The Maulvi in the masjid is not the one that teaches your kid. You can't abdicate your responsibility to a third party. You brought them into this world. You have to raise them. Now that doesn't mean that you're always going to do a good job. And one thing that I always use as a bit of solace is that Nuh alayhi salam preached for 999 years, 950 years. And when the flood came, some of his children were on the ark because they were against him. They didn't believe. That's a prophet. And if his kids didn't make it onto the ark, don't beat yourself up too much. Because sometimes we can be the best parents and give them the best upbringing and do everything right, but sometimes still they stray off the path. So don't beat yourself up. Pick your chin up and carry on. But never give up. Keep trying, and eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them hidayah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put that love of Islam into their hearts, and they will come back, inshallah, at one point. But don't give up.
Moazzam, Shahid, it was honestly an honor to go over these stories. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this conversation was a means of benefit for those who have attended and those who are tuning on online. Jazakumullah khair. My dear brothers and sisters, those of you who are tuning on online, do remember to click subscribe to the 5 Pillars YouTube channel.